What is up, guys? Welcome to the beginning of my Rastakhans of Rumble set review. So far in the reveal season, we have about 90 cards revealed. In fact, a majority of the cards have been shown to us already, so we can get a good sense of what's going on, all the different synergies, and I can more accurately, describe what's going on with the cards and give you my thoughts. We're going to go through these this week, starting from highest mana cost down to lowest mana cost. So for today, a lot of big splashy legendaries to look at. Going to be a lot of fun. Like always, we're going to review these cards based both on power level and design. A card will get higher marks in design if it is very creative, very cool, or possibly will spawn new archetypes. A card will lose points in the design score if it is a little bit boring, maybe uncreative, or maybe it's blatantly overpowered and will warp the format in a bad way. Or maybe it's just a missed opportunity, or it's not quite statted correctly to see any play whatsoever. All right, let's get started here, guys. Fair warning, we are going to butcher the pronunciation of many of these legendary cards, so bear with me. Starting off here at 25 mana, Shrivala the Tiger, Divine Shield, Rush, and Lifesteal as a 7/5 beast. There are a lot of beasts in the set, and for good reason, we'll see coming up here in a minute. Costs 1 less for each mana you spent on spell. So 25 mana is a big problem. I like the card design here because there's a lot of different ways to tackle this sort of problem. The first way, maybe the most boring way, is to play it in a control paladin deck, with a lot of heavy spells. Cards like Shrink Ray, Spike Ridge Steed, a new Challenger, which is a card we'll be looking at, which costs 7 mana. And then you play this at the end of the game for cheap to get a big life swing, kind of like a Zeliax type card that puts you through hoops to make it work. The second way you play this is obviously the OTK with Holy Wrath. Kind of a silly idea, but possibly could be a thing. You put this as your last card in the deck with a couple Baleful Bankers, and then you can Holy Wrath your opponent out for up to 50 damage. What supports this strategy is a new Ice Block card coming up in Paladin. So very cool. The last way you play this is you just cheat it out with the new neutral we're looking at here in a minute, Ondasta, and that might be the way this gets played most often. Grave Horror is a 12 mana 7/8 taunt that costs 1 less for each spell you've cast this game. So we have Arcane Giant 2.0. The big difference here is the taunt, which does make it quite a bit better because you can get it with cards like Spike Ridge Steed and then play it with the new legendary, what's it called? Princess Taljani. That's a pretty sweet little deal coming up. And it's hard to judge these cards power level because we don't exactly know, how often, how many spells you're going to be able to play in a game. Like, does this get to 0, or does it just get to like 5 or 6 mana, in which case it's fine. Once it starts getting, to 1, 2, 3, 0 mana, then it's pretty insane, and you have to watch out for, cards that sort of duplicate it for cheap. And because it has taunt, though, it is quite a bit different than Arcane Giant. Again, it makes resurrecting it quite a bit better. Hakar the Soul Flare, 10 mana 9/6 with the Death Rattle. Shuffle a Corrupted Blood into each player's deck. Each player, so, okay. What is Corrupted Blood? Let's take a look. It's 1 mana, but that doesn't matter because it says cast when drawn, and that means you actually do draw a card. Even though it doesn't say draw a card like a lot of these used to, because it says cast when drawn, you will draw this. It does 3 damage to you. You put 2 into your deck, and then you do draw for your turn, or whatever draws you had going on. So this does sort of kill you if you have no deck, right? If it's the last card in your deck. If you put this into your opponent's deck when they have no deck, it will kill them when they start the turn. I guess that's a thing you could do. As an alternate win condition, it's kind of weird because you have to figure out how to sort of kill your opponent, like last long enough to kill your opponent with this, and then figure out how you're sort of surviving your own Corrupted Blood. There are ways to remove these from your deck, technically. So with the Death Rattle and not a Battle Cry, it's also vulnerable to silence. Usually when there's big Death Rattles, you want to try to find ways to cheat them into play. And you could look at Barnes and Wild. Maybe you play Barnes plus Hakar only and sort of Yashard style deck. Who knows? It's a cool card. It's going to lose design points because it's just so horribly statted. And why does it have to put Corrupted Blood into your deck? I get, like, that's like Hakar's thing. He doesn't care, who's spreading the plagues and stuff like that. But, come on, man. Why not just put it into their deck? It's already kind of terrible. Why make it even more terrible by giving you the Corrupted Blood problem? Ondasta, 9 mana, 7/7 Rush Beast neutral. And this is one of the big neutrals to get from the set here. Overkill, which means anytime this attacks and does more damage than it needs to. So if you attack anything with 6 health or less, you will trigger the overkill, which says summon a beast from your hand. And we're talking about Shivala a second ago. This might be the way you use Shivala just with the Ondasta. Ondasta comes down, kill something big. Shivala comes down, kill something big, and you gain a bunch of life. So that's a big tempo swing and a big life swing there with Paladin. A lot of big beasts coming up to look at, and some of the things you can do with this. Katharina. You can play this with Eureka, which is kind of insane because you can Rika it out. It comes in, it attacks, and then it might summon Ondasta from your hand. Because remember, Eureka, it doesn't take it from your hand. It puts a copy down, and then the second Ondasta comes down, maybe even hits another big beast. So pretty sweet here, and one of the go-to craft cards if you don't open this in packs. I think Ondasta is just going to enable a lot of fun stuff. Void Contract, 8 mana Warlock spell. Destroy half of each player's deck. So this is really 8 mana, do nothing, and it is terrible. Don't even try, guys. In some sort of world where Control Warlock can afford to play an 8 mana, do nothing card, then it's going to be so overpowered in the first place that they don't need to worry about combo decks. So don't even try it. It's just a terrible card. Even if you make it 2 mana with Blood Bloom, I do not think you're just ever going to want to do this. Akali the Rhino, 8 mana 5/5 beast, warrior legendary with rush, overkill, and when you get that overkill trigger, you're going to draw a rush minion from your deck and give it +5/+5. So what are the big payoffs? Well, Zeliax or Darius are both pretty big payoffs in the late game because they're cheap enough to where you can play 2 cards a turn, and if you get a huge life swing with Zeliax, that'd be great. And Darius gets much better the bigger he is. Bigger things you can sort of kill and grow with. So that is the big payoff. A little bit at odds with Town Crier in the sense that if you play 2 Town Criers to, try to pull this out of your deck, you might pull too many rush minions out of your deck, and then all of a sudden this doesn't do anything. So that's a little bit awkward there. It is even, which is important because Warriors kind of pigeonholed a little bit lately into the Baku decks. There are going to be reasons to sort of branch out from odd coming up, but anything that is odd is better in Warrior right now. Captain Hook Tusk is the 8 mana rogue legendary pirate, 6/3, with the battlecry summon 3 pirates from your deck, give them a rush. So this has an immediate impact on the board, which is one of the sort of litmus tests for these huge mana cost cards, and usually what determines if they're playable or not. So this does do a lot. The unfortunate thing is you kind of have to make some concessions to your deck to make it really good, right? A lot of the pirates are pretty small, so if you're sort of an aggressive pirate deck with this as the top end, it's not going to be the biggest payoff. Now, if you put cards like Ticket Scalper, which are coming up here, that's a pretty big payoff. Ticket Scalper is some card advantage, and it's a big 5/3 rush with this card. So there are some big payoffs if you sort of, make some concessions to power level in your deck. And I do think this is powerful enough to see play, and I do kind of like the design a lot. The Undertaker, 8 mana, 8/5 battlecry, gain the death rattle effects of 3 friendly minions that died this game. So like we were just talking about with the Captain, this is the opposite, where it is War Golem status when you play it, right? It comes into play. It does not defend you with Taunt. It doesn't do anything with the battle cry. It just sits there until it dies. So we're looking to sort of combo this card at some point, maybe with Play Dead. In Rogue, you have Necrium Blade, so you can play it, immediately attack with the blade to get the trigger, and all of a sudden your death routes go off and hopefully do something great. In Wild, this gets better because of Sylvanas exactly. In Standard, the big death rattles are Hadronox, and you know what? There's not that many, big scary death rattles in Standard, but when you get 3 of them, there's possibility. So you can't totally write this card off, but it's no N'Zoth in the sense that N'Zoth comes down, usually defends you for 10 mana. This comes down, and again, is War Golem status outside of, pairing it with the Play Dead at 9 or the Necrium Blade in exactly Rogue. And that's where I would look at this initially. Hexalord Malakras, 8 mana, 5/5 legendary with the battlecry. Add a copy of your opening hand, accept this card to your hand. Well, that's kind of lame that if you keep this in your mulligan and you don't get it, that'd be kind of a cool payoff to keep an 8-drop 5/5 do nothing, right? Yeah, so this card has, again, a problem where it's expensive and it doesn't impact the board immediately. Now, if you get the coin, it gets much better because you sort of widen your possibilities when you play this. it's at odds with itself because the cards you keep in your mulligan generally are low cost, not really cards you're trying to win the game with, or cards that necessarily are super impactful late in the game. There might be some sort of weird combo here, getting extra copies of maybe Sorcerer's Apprentice or something. In Wild, you could try to get extra copies of Ice Block. Maybe you keep coin Ice Block. Oh, you always keep the coin, but maybe you have Ice Block in your hand, and then later on, you play this, you coin out an extra Ice Block. That could be cool in exactly Wild, but overall, pretty underwhelming, although cool design card. Loses a little bit of points because it is sort of poorly statted, right? Another 8 mana legendary Herrick the Bat is a 1/1 this time. It is a beast with the battle cry, fill your board with copies of this minion. So obviously making 7 1/1s is not good. You need to buff this at least once. What saves the card from complete unplayability is that only one soul infusion is kind of all you need to get a little bit of value. If you fill your board with 3/3s, you get 5 to 7 3/3s. That's pretty high tempo. Again, it has the do not defend yourself problem, but if this is the top end of a zoo deck, it could technically be a pretty cool finisher. So pretty decent card. If you buff this once, it's not much different than buffing it 3 or 4 times, because once is all you kind of need to win the game, and it still dies to the same things. If you buff it 5 times, it's still going to get screamed, or it's still going to get light bombed in Wild. So usually buffing it more than once is irrelevant, usually it will say, but pretty cool card. Princess Teljani, another 8 mana legendary with a battle cry. This one's a 7/5 in Priest. It says summon all minions from your hand that didn't start in your deck. So like we were talking about with the 8 mana cards that defend yourself, this one does have the opportunity to defend yourself. In fact, it does so quite well with just one Stonehill Defender. You play Stonehill Defender, you take the biggest thing, and at 8 mana you play this and you get the biggest thing out for free. That alone is almost good enough, right? If you consider something like Sleepy Dragon for free, pretty good deal. And this can get out of hand quite quickly if you sort of build around it and look for, huge things to play out for free. So very cool card. One of the stronger cards in the set, I imagine, and can't wait to get this thing going. A new challenger, ... Cleverly named card here. 7 mana Paladin spell. Discover a 6-cost minion. Summon it with Taunt and Divine Shield. So no matter what minion you get, even if it's really small somehow, well, at least it is annoying with Taunt and Divine Shield. This helps the Shirvala, get cheaper from 25 to 0. This is a decent card to play following the Spirit and Paladin we're going to take a look at. And it is a pretty nifty little Grand Archivist target as well. So overall, you do get your money's worth, and there are some synergies to be had with this thing. So cool card design, and we'll try this out for sure. Amani Warbear is a 7 mana neutral 5/7 beast with both Rush and Taunt. So these sort of huge neutral taunts keep getting pushed further and further. When Bog Creeper was revealed, I thought it might see play. It saw a little bit of play. When Furious Eaton was revealed, I thought it would see play. It didn't really see play outside of maybe Fringe Baku decks. And this one, however, I just know it's going to see play because it just does so much at 7 mana. It's definitely going to be the go-to 7 mana neutral card if you need a 7-drop. It's a beast. It has 7 health for those, random Starliner synergies that you might have going on. And it's very close to sort of a overcosted Vilespine Slayer kind of a card, right? You don't have to combo it. So it's like also like very close to like a Fire Elemental type of a card. For 1 more mana, you're kind of doing what those cards do. So just a very strong card. I do actually think this sees constructed play. Bonswandi the Dead is a 7 mana 7/7. We got a War Golem here. Battle Cry. Draw 1-cost minions until your hand is full. So just all the ones. And there are ways to put big ones in your deck with the new Spirit of the Dead, which we will look at eventually. And that is the main use of this card. It sort of also sets up possible Starliner silliness. If you can use the Spirit of the Dead to kill off 7 health minions, make them 1 cost, play this, draw the ones, and then you can sort of go 1/1 into Starliner for the dream, right? So cool card design. Probably the sort of War Golem status. We talk about this a lot, but it doesn't defend itself, doesn't defend you on the turn you play it. It's just big and dumb, and it is a cool combo enabler, however, and we'll definitely try this card out if we open it. Proud Roaster. We have a neutral dragon here for 7 mana. It's a 7/4. Odd stats. It's very, very threatening. Pretty easy to deal with, I guess. If it says battle cry, if you're holding a dragon, deal 7 damage to an enemy minion. Well, good thing it's kind of easy to deal with because this thing is going to basically assassinate pretty much everything outside of the Lich King. And this is a big payoff for being a dragon deck, I gotta imagine. 7, 7 is a lot. This sort of competes exactly with the Mani Warbear, and it's interesting to note that it does kill the Warbear. So if you're playing, if you have Warbear and your opponent might have the Crowd Roaster, well, you're going to want to wait until you can rush your Warbear into something before you get completely punished by the Crowd Roaster. It is also an odd cost card, which is important as the sort of dragon deck to being pushed this time around is not Priest, it is Warrior, and Warrior wants to be Baku in general, and anytime we have an odd cost dragon, we got to take a close look at it. Gronk the Raptor, 7 mana, 4/9 beast. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, it may attack again. This is the sort of druid theme running through this set. Anytime your hero kills something, you can try to get a bonus from one of your cards. That's a little bit awkward. We don't have all the information yet. We might be missing sort of another bite type card, another claw type card, another gnash type card, or maybe that makes those cards playable. Who knows? Overall, this is pretty underwhelming. In fact, if you compare it to the card we just saw, a Mani Warbear, I think it stacks up unfavorably to that card. It doesn't have immediate rush like the Warbear, and it doesn't have taunt like the Warbear, to protect you. So overall, pretty underwhelming, especially in Druid, which have the option to, kind of do crazy things. Gurbashi Hypemon? Hypemon? I don't know. Who knows how you say that? It looks like almost Pokemon. Hypemon. Anyway, it's a 5/7 Battlecry. Discover a 1/1 copy of a Battlecry minion. It costs 1. So I think this card's pretty unplayable. It is interesting as sort of a Starliner card, I guess. If you're doing some silliness with Cube, maybe. Get this out there, it lives, and you cube it. For Starliner, also what saves this card possibly is because you discover class cards to some extent more often, you have the opportunity to get 2 huge Battlecry minions, both Tess Greymane and the new Captain Hooktusk, right? So that's what kind of saves this card, and might see some fringe playability in fun decks, not competitive decks, right? Ironhide Direhorn, 7 mana, 7, yet another War Golem here. Literal War Golem almost. Overkill, summon an 8/8 Ironhide Runt. So again, doesn't do anything the turn that it comes into play unless you cheat it out, which you can do with Ondasta. And you can also give this rush with a card coming up, Stampeding Roar in Druid, to get the value right away. But I think with Stampeding Roar, you're actually going to be wanting to be doing different things, possibly even stronger beasts. But it is a combo with Roar. I just feel like this sort of misses the mark. It is probably a solid arena card in the sense that it's at least War Golem with upside, right? Jan Ala Ai, the Dragonhawk. Who knows if we said that correctly? If your hero power has dealt 8 damage this game, you summon Ragnaros the Fire Lord, and it's a 4/4. So Ragnaros makes his return to Standard. And how hard is it to do 8 damage with your hero power? Not that hard, actually, if you build your deck around this. The Spirit of the Dragonhawk, which will, make your hero power hit to the sides, means you can sort of get there pretty quickly with this thing. Also, there are some hero power enhancers which we'll be looking at. Also, Baku the Moon Eater makes your hero power do 2, in which case you would only need to ping 4 times, which would be not that hard to do because the ping in Baku Mage is almost close to a removal card. So, very strong card. In fact, I do think this is one of the strongest cards in the set. Ragnaros in Mage also has the benefit of being great with Jaina. Anytime you're Jaina and you play this with Rag coming out, all of a sudden you get a 4/4, an 8/8 that kills things and heals for 8. Wow. Line Cracker is a 7 mana, 5/10. So just an enormous amount of stats for 7 mana. And Overkill double this minion's attack. So you have to figure out how to give this rush, maybe the Boom Ship or something like that. Could be interesting. And it is technically sort of War Golem-ish because it doesn't do anything the turn it comes into play. That's what holds cards like these back. Even though they have, infinite stats, if they don't do something immediately, they get killed by Shadow or Death, unfortunately. This one doesn't dodge the death. Also, cards like Sap. Rogue have a lot of ways to deal with this. Valspine Slayer Sap and the new card coming up, Walk the Plank. And usually cards like this don't make it. Eventually, there's going to be a card that's just so big that it's going to be good enough, but I don't think it's this one. Rabble Bouncer is a 7 mana 2/7 with taunt. It costs 1 less for each enemy minion. In fact, if your opponent has a full board, this will cost 0. And the best thing to do with a 0 cost 7 health minion is to combo with Starliner. I think that's where this gets played in the fun Starliner decks. I don't think this gets played as a sort of neutral anti-aggressive card, unless the format is just so hyper aggressive with Baku Paladin and Zoo that you just have to play this. I don't think so. I think this gets played more in a Starliner deck, but it is hard to tell. How often is this playable around turn 4 or 5? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it matches up well against a lot of the Zoo decks well, too, because a lot of the Zoo decks have 3 health minions, and this only has 2 attack. So, yeah, I don't think this is an anti-aggressive card. I think it is a Starliner enabler, and to that effect, it's pretty good at what it does. Soul Thrazi, or Soul Thraze, 6 mana 4/4 overkill weapon. You may attack again. Notably, can deal with Spellstone at any point because you can take 12 to clear it. You spent 6 mana and a card to do that, and 12 base damage, but technically you dealt with it. Just kind of shows how powerful Emerald Spellstone can be on curve. The problem with this card, in control decks, it competes with other cards like Gorehowl and now Super Collider. I think this fits into decks where the face damage could matter, where you actually could just hit your opponent in the face with it, like kind of like an Arcanite Reaper type of card that has the possibility to board clear. Cannon Barrage is a 6 mana rogue epic spell. Deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Repeat for each of your pirates. So maybe the finisher in an aggressive pirate deck. I say aggressive because you just need to be aggressive to play this. The face damage randomly has to matter. If you're a control deck, you don't want to see this hit face. So in an aggressive deck, the face damage doubles up as sort of value, and that's where this gets played. In Wild, you have these sort of patches plus gang up shenanigans to sort of, explode onto the board with patches and then use this to finish your opponent. So interesting card. Might be a 1-of in aggressive decks. Might be a 2-of possibly. Very hard card to judge because it's very mathy, and you have to kind of know the average damage you're going to have dealt to your opponent by turn 6, how many average pirates you have in play on turn 6, and unless you know the format really well that you're playing in, it's just kind of hard to judge. But I can see the opportunity where this is absolutely a legit finishing card. Heavy Metal, a 6 mana warrior spell with summon a random minion with cost equal to your armor up to 10. So you can't get something bigger. The new Paladin card, I guess. The new Priest taunt thing. Anyway, you can only get Deathwing. So this is this doesn't ask, is very similar to Recruit, right? It doesn't ask as much of your deck as Recruit does, because you can still play cheap minions with this card. You can also do the sort of armor up combo with the Dry Gulch guy. That's pretty cool. But the payoff is probably less explosive, right? If you just put big minions in your deck, recruiting a minion is always going to get a big minion, where this, requires you to sort of tank up pretty hard. Notably an even card, so it doesn't slot into a Baku deck whatsoever. Pretty cool Grand Archivist card, possibly, again, if you have a lot of armor effects in your game. We're going to be testing this card out, but on paper, it doesn't look like a great deal, right? Reign of Toads, 6 mana shaman spell, summon 3 2/4 toads with taunt, and it overloads you for 3, so 9 mana in total. If you play this on 6, you will only have 4 mana next turn, which means you cannot Volcano, which might be something you want to do in a deck with Reign of Toads. So a little bit awkward in that sense. You can still Lightning Storm, which does synergize well with a board full of taunts. If Mossy Horror is in the format, you can't play this anymore. And this does try to replicate sort of Spreading Plague. I think it fails in that regard, as Spreading Plague, punishes your opponent so hard for going really wide. This thing here, it is what it is, right? In a Shutterwalk deck, it's possible this is all you want to be doing, but the overload is a big downside, and watch out for Mossy Horror. Hard to judge this card. I'm going to go ahead and say that it won't see that much play, but could be wrong just because of how powerful the Shutterwalk strategy is. Stampeding Roar, 6 mana druid spell, summon a random beast from your hand and give it rush. So if the 7/7 overkill minion sees play, it is definitely because of this card. I think more likely this gets played with exactly Tyrantus, possibly Hadronox, as it's a way to cheat on the mana cost of those cards. There's also going to be a way Predatory Instinct to search out a beast and double its health. So there might be a deck with few beasts like Tyrantus and Hadronox. You play this and then get it out there for cheap. Arcanosaur, 6 mana, 3/3 elemental for mage. If you played an elemental last turn, deal 3 damage to all other minions. So here we have a quote fixed Duskbreaker that supports elemental strategies in mage. Now, is a Duskbreaker for 6 still a good deal? I would argue that yes, it's still a very good deal because Duskbreaker is kind of broken at 4. Having it cost 6 mana is probably the least quote fair cost. This card's kind of nutty also after you resolve a Jaina because it's going to, probably heal you completely full while doing a pretty good job at clearing the board while also keeping your elemental chains going if that's what you're doing. I think you can get away with playing this in a lightly sprinkled elemental deck, and it obviously fits right into the elemental curve of Bonfire Elemental on 5, Arcanosaur on 6, into Blaze Caller on 7. So overall, very strong card, and because of Jaina and because it is a way to kill spirits, if that's a thing, and even a 6 mana Duskbreaker is still very good. Soul Warden, 6 mana, 6/6 Warlock creature, Battlecry. Add 3 random cards you discarded this game from your hand. So here we have a way to play Gul'dan in a discard deck and to not lose Gul'dan forever. Also, can kind of combo with itself. If you discard a Soul Warden and then play the other Soul Warden, well, you have like this Soul Warden chain to grind your opponent out, and it's going to combo pretty sweet with the new Warlock Legendary, which is called High Priestess Jeklik. And so even though this is kind of Boulder Fist Ogre status, where it's just a 6 mana, 6/6, kind of does nothing the turn you play it, because of the value it can generate and because it can sort of save your high priority cards like Gul'dan exactly from the discard pile, I definitely think this sees play. Baraki Battle Axe, 5 mana weapon and paladin. It's a 3 attack, 3 durability. Overkill, which means you have to kill a 2 health minion, which is not what you want to be doing. But if you do, you get a minion in your hand +2/+2. So I think the problem here is a couple things. Overall, a 5 mana deal 3 weapon isn't amazing. And because you want to be killing exactly 3 health minions with your 5 cost weapon, you don't even get the overkill bonus for doing so, right? Like, it's arguable that a 5 mana weapon is not what you want to be. A 5 mana 3 attack weapon is not what you want in the first place. And if you do have the good scenario where you get to kill a 3 health minion, you sort of don't get the overkill anyway. So again, looks like a pretty poor card here. Baited Arrow. We are unfortunately ending on a pretty underwhelming card, possibly a nice arena card. 5 mana, deal 3 damage, so notably can go base. Overkill, summon a 5/5 Devilsaur. So very, very close in practice to a Bane of Doom, because you need to kill a 2 health minion to get that 5/5 Devilsaur. You pretty much will never kill a 3 health minion unless you're in real trouble. You want to kill a 2 health minion. So very similar to Bane of Doom, which I don't think is constructed playable. Fine card in arena most likely, but outside of some sort of weird Arcane Tyrant deck, maybe the All Spells Hunter just ends up being the 30th best card in that list. But I don't think this is necessarily constructed playable at all. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. About 30 cards today. Again, we're going to do about 30 cards tomorrow and 30 cards to look at on Thursday. And then once all the cards in the set are revealed, we'll do one final video and give you my thoughts on the remaining ones. So far, pretty cool. A lot of new archetypes possibly going to pop up with these new cards. And I think Blizzard is doing a fairly decent job of, moving us away from Baku and Gen decks. I think a lot of these sort of interesting warrior cards are going to be even to sort of pull us away from Baku, and possibly a lot of cool even rogue cards, etc., etc. So hopefully you guys tune in the next 2 days, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, guys. I have links here for more content. And if you would like to see the channel grow, please click that subscribe button in the middle. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.